The world's biggest ships aren't missing. They've just gone invisible to the systems we trust. And this shadow movement is already hitting your wallet. You stand at the gas pump, watching the numbers tick upward, faster than they used to. You walk through the supermarket aisles, noticing how the packaging is shrinking while the price tag grows. You feel it in your savings account, a slow, silent erosion of your labor. The voices on the television, the central bankers, the politicians, the pundits in their dry, air-conditioned studios tell you not to worry. They use comforting words like transitory, supply chain bottlenecks, or seasonal adjustments. They point to charts that say inflation is coming down. They tell you the system is healing. But the maps on land do not show the full picture. In fact, the maps on land are incomplete. If you want to know the truth about why your purchasing power is dying, you must turn your back on the stock market tickers and look at the horizon. Look at the ocean. Right now, as you watch this, a massive, invisible event is taking place on the high seas. Over 600 gigantic oil tankers, vessels the size of skyscrapers, are vanishing from global radar screens. They turn off their transponders, they repaint their decks, they rename their hulls, they go dark. They are the ghosts of the global economy. This is not a technical glitch. It is the deliberate construction of a parallel world, a shadow system. History has flashed this red signal exactly 3 times before. We saw it when the American South was strangled in 1861. We saw it when alcohol was outlawed in the 1920s. And we are seeing it today.
This is Finance Beyond Seas. We explore the moments where the currents of maritime history and the tides of the global economy collide. We're here to navigate the wreckage of the past, to find the financial lessons that will protect you today. We analyze history and systems, not futures. Nothing presented here is financial advice. It is purely historical and economic commentary.
To understand the economic storm we are sailing into, we must first understand a fundamental law of maritime physics. It is called the law of friction cost. Imagine the global economy as a mighty river. For the last 30 years, this river flowed straight, deep, and fast. We called this globalism. Ships moved freely, insurance was cheap, and routes were direct. It was efficient. But what happens when geopolitics builds a dam across that river? What happens when sanctions, trade wars, and blockades try to stop the flow? Does the water stop? No. Water is incompressible. It simply finds a new path. But this new path is not a straight, deep channel. It is a jagged, muddy, winding creek. It flows through the gray zone. In this zone, the rules of the light do not apply. Here, the insurance premiums are not 1%, they are 10%. Here, the route is not 5,000 miles, it is 12,000 miles. Here, the captain demands a bribe, not a salary. This extra distance, this extra danger, this extra bribe, this is the friction cost. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The entity placing the sanction does not pay this cost. The entity being sanctioned often passes it on. Ultimately, the consumer at the end of the river, you, pays for every mile of that inefficient journey. Let me ask you a question before we dive into history. Have you noticed products in your own life that seem to be available, but the quality has dropped while the price has risen? That is the smell of friction cost. Tell me in the comments below if you see this shadow inflation in your industry. We are currently witnessing the greatest accumulation of friction cost since the mid-19th century. To understand where this ends, we must look at the last time a great power tried to blockade a major commodity. We must sail to the year 1861. The American Civil War, a conflict usually analyzed through the lens of battles and generals. But the real war, the financial war, was fought on the waves. The North, the Union, initiated the Anaconda Plan. It was a total naval blockade designed to suffocate the South, the Confederacy. The South had King Cotton, the white gold of the era, but they had no way to sell it. The North had the ships to stop them. By all conventional logic, the Southern economy should have hit zero immediately, but it didn't. Why? Because of a new breed of sailor, the Blockade Runner. The market adapted with terrifying speed. In the shipyards of Liverpool and Glasgow, a new type of vessel was constructed. These were not heavy cargo ships. They were the Ferraris of the ocean, long, incredibly narrow, painted a specific shade of fog gray to blend into the mist, and powered by anthracite coal that burned without smoke. They operated out of neutral ports like Nassau in the Bahamas and Bermuda. These quiet islands were transformed overnight into bustling hubs of gold and intrigue. The blockade runners would load British rifles, French luxury goods, and coffee in Nassau, dash through the Union naval lines under the cover of a moonless night, dock in Wilmington or Charleston, unload, fill up with cotton, and dash back out. The economics of this trade reveal our current future. Before the war, coffee in the South cost pennies. It was a commodity. Once the blockade began, coffee didn't disappear, it just went underground. The price skyrocketed by over 5,000%. Was this because coffee was rare? No, the world was full of coffee. The price rose because the shadow captains demanded a 700% profit margin to risk their lives and their ships. The official price in the North was stable. The real price in the South was hyperinflationary. The blockade didn't stop the trade, it merely transferred the wealth of the common people into the pockets of the smugglers and the intermediaries in Bermuda. The South bled dry, not just from war expenses, but from the sheer inefficiency of their supply chain. The lesson is brutal. When you ban a trade, you do not kill it. You simply hand the monopoly to the most ruthless operators in the ocean. This was not a one-time anomaly. The ocean has a long memory, and it repeats this pattern whenever a government tries to fight the tide. Example 2. The rum fleet, 1920s. Fast forward to Prohibition. The United States government banned alcohol. They drew a line on the water, the 3-mile limit. Inside this line, alcohol was illegal. So what did the market do? It built Rum Row, a permanent floating city of ships anchored exactly 3.1 miles offshore. They sat there, just out of reach of the Coast Guard, visible from the beaches of New York. Small, high-speed cutters would sprint back and forth, ferrying the goods. Did people stop drinking? No. But the price of a drink tripled. The quality plummeted, the famous bathtub gin. And the tax revenue that used to go to the state now went to organized crime syndicates. The friction cost created the mafia. Example 3. The pariah premium, 1980s. Look at South Africa during the apartheid sanctions. The world said, no oil for this regime. Did the cars in Johannesburg stop running? No. A fleet of ghost tankers emerged. Shell companies were formed in tax havens. Oil was bought in the Middle East, sold to a company in Panama, resold to a company in Liberia, and finally delivered to Cape Town. Every handshake added a fee. Every hidden transfer added a premium. They called it the pariah premium. In every single case, Civil War, Prohibition, Cold War, the result is mathematically identical. The trade continues. The efficiency collapses. The consumer pays a shadow tax on every transaction. Now brace yourself, because what is happening today makes the Civil War blockade look like a child's game. Bring the compass to the present day. The blockade runners are back, but they have evolved. Following the G7 sanctions on Russian crude oil and the existing sanctions on Iran and Venezuela, a massive rupture has occurred in the global logistics network. The West said, "We will not insure your ships. We will not let you use our ports." The response was the creation of the shadow fleet. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a physical reality floating on the water. Roughly 10% of the global tanker fleet has defected. These are vessels that should be in the scrapyard. They're 20, 25 years old, rusty, single-hulled giants that no reputable insurer would touch. They're bought by anonymous shell companies, registered in places like the Marshall Islands or the Seychelles. How do they operate? They use a technique called spoofing. A captain can hack his automatic identification system, AIS. The digital signal tells the world, "I am sailing in the middle of the Atlantic." But physically, the ship is sitting off the coast of Venezuela, loading forbidden oil. They utilize dark zones. Look at the Laconicus Gulf in Greece, or the waters off Malaysia. These are the new Nassaus. Here, ships meet in international waters. They perform ship-to-ship transfers, STS. They tie huge hoses between two moving vessels in the open ocean, a dangerous maneuver, and pump millions of barrels of oil from a dark ship to a legitimate ship. By the time that oil reaches a refinery in India or China, its origin has been washed clean. It is refined into diesel and sold, often back to Europe. But here is the catch. Here is the anchor dragging us down. The efficient, modern supertankers are gone from this trade. Instead, we rely on old, inefficient ships, taking longer routes, paying higher bribes, and operating without standard insurance. This creates a structural floor for inflation. Even if the central banks lower interest rates, they cannot lower the cost of shipping oil on a pirate vessel 15,000 miles around Africa. The friction cost is now baked into the price of your commute, your heating, and your food. The majority of investors are waiting for the storm to pass. They are waiting for prices to return to 2019 levels. The maritime history suggests this is a fatal error. Once a shadow system is built, it does not dismantle itself easily. The Blockade Runners didn't vanish until the war ended. The Rum Row didn't disband until the law changed. So how does the individual navigate these treacherous waters? We deploy the neutral port strategy. 1. Tangible over nominal. In a world where trade is fragmented and currencies are weaponized, paper value is vulnerable. The shadow fleet moves things: oil, gold, grain. These physical assets retain value, regardless of the route. Ensure your portfolio has weight. Do not rely solely on the promises of the banking system that is currently fighting this economic war. 2. The middleman advantage. During the Civil War, the people who made the most enduring fortunes were not the soldiers, nor even the captains. It was the warehouse owners in Nassau. It was the coal suppliers in Bermuda. Look for the companies and sectors that facilitate logistics, storage, and infrastructure. In a chaotic world, the bridge builders charge the highest tolls. 3. Pricing in the disaster. Understand that the shadow fleet is fragile. These ships are old. They are uninsured. One major oil spill, one collision in a narrow strait like Malacca or Hormuz, and the supply chain doesn't just slow down, it snaps. You must have personal resilience. Are you prepared for a sudden, sharp shock in energy prices? Maritime history teaches us a brutal, undeniable truth. Politics may draw lines on a map, but economics will always find a way to cross them. The lines have been drawn. The sanctions are in place, but the shadow fleet is crossing them every single day. The water is finding its way around the dam. The result is a world that is more expensive, more dangerous, and less transparent. The fog is getting thicker. The old maps, the ones they show you on the evening news, are no longer accurate. They show you the world as they wish it was, not as it is. Now, I turn the helm to you. If this shadow fleet continues to grow and the official economy continues to shrink, who do you think will control the prices in 5 years? The central banks or the shadow captains? Give me your verdict in the comments. If you wish to see through the fog, if you want the coordinates that the mainstream media omits, set your compass to finance beyond seas. Subscribe, ring the bell, because in the coming storm, only those who can read the waves will stay afloat.